Most retirement advice tells you to keep buying, keep saving, keep accumulating. But what if the move that actually changes your retirement has nothing to do with adding anything at all? Here is what 16 years of watching people retire has revealed. The retirees who end up the happiest are not always the ones with the most. They are the ones who made one decision that most people never even consider. They chose what to let go of. There is a story about an older woman who spent her entire life filling her home with everything she ever bought, floor to ceiling, stacks of newspapers and magazines going back years, belongings she never used but could never bring herself to release. When she finally moved into a care home, her room was clean, simple, and calm. Someone asked her if she missed all of her stuff. She paused and said, "Some days, but most days I just feel free." That one sentence is what smart retirement actually looks like. My name is Uncle Investor, and I have spent years breaking down what separates a stressful retirement from a genuinely fulfilling one. If you want honest, no-fluff strategies to make this next chapter the best one of your life, subscribe and hit the like button right now. There are two types of people watching this. The first is still asking, am I really ready? Do I actually have enough? If that is you, what you are about to hear will give you real confidence. The second type already knows they are ready and wants to squeeze every last drop out of these go-go years without wasting a single one. If that is you, this will help you do exactly that. Today, I am walking you through 7 things to sell or let go of before you retire. I will start with the ones that create the biggest financial impact, and at the end, I will give you a simple 3-step framework so you can decide for yourself what to sell and what to keep. Let us get into it. Number 1, your oversized house. This is the single most common thing people let go of before retirement. And it carries the biggest financial impact of anything on this list. It was not always oversized. When you bought it, it was the exact right size for a family of 3, 4, or 5. But now the kids are out on their own. The guest room has not had a visitor in years, and what once felt like a dream home is starting to feel more like a part-time job. Here is what downsizing can actually do for you. Lower maintenance costs, lower property taxes, lower utility bills, and it can unlock a significant chunk of home equity, which for many retirees is one of their single largest assets. That released equity can fund travel, generate retirement income, or become a lasting legacy for the people you love. There is also a ripple effect most people never stop to think about. When you lower your cost of living, you may not need to pull as much money from your retirement accounts each year. And that alone can keep you in a lower tax bracket, which means more of your money stays right where it belongs. One couple had raised 5 kids in their home and genuinely loved where they lived, walking distance to a little downtown area, close to a beautiful park. But those cold winters had worn on them for years. So they sold the oversized house, used the equity to buy a smaller condo in the same neighborhood for summers and spent winters in a warmer climate. They freed up $200,000 in equity, cut their annual expenses by $15,000 in maintenance and utilities, and they never looked back once. They stopped being house managers and started being life managers. Now, this is not the right move for everyone. Some of you love your home and plan to age right there. That is completely valid. But if the house is starting to feel like it owns you more than you own it, that feeling is worth listening to. Number 2, the extra car. When you are no longer commuting every single day, the question becomes pretty simple. Do you really need multiple vehicles sitting in your garage, losing value and costing you insurance, registration, and maintenance every single month? One couple sat down and calculated the true annual cost of their second vehicle. Insurance, maintenance, and registration combined came out to around $3,000 per year, just to keep a car they rarely needed. They decided to run a 2-month test and live as though they only had one car. The results surprised them both. It was far easier than they ever imagined. They sold the second vehicle and redirected that money toward travel instead. It takes some adjustment, and it is not the right call for every household. But if you are building your retirement budget from scratch, this is one of the simplest ways to cut monthly costs and free up real money for the things you actually want to do. Number 3, investments with high fees and unnecessary complexity. This one is not a physical object, but it belongs on this list because it quietly drains tens of thousands of dollars from people over time, and most never realize it is happening. Think about that old variable annuity with layers of fees buried deep in the documents. That whole life insurance policy a family member sold you 25 years ago that you are still paying on today. That mutual fund charging over 1% per year. That private equity fund sending you a stack of tax paperwork every single spring. These products often carry heavy fees and they pile on complexity at exactly the time in your life when simplicity becomes one of your greatest assets. One client spent his entire career on Wall Street with access to every sophisticated investment product imaginable. When he came in, he had already sold everything and moved it all into simple index funds. When asked why, his answer was direct. The fees and the complexity simply were not worth what he was paying. Here's the truth. The more complex the financial product, the better it tends to work for the person selling it, not the person buying it. In retirement, simplicity and low cost win the majority of the time. And while we are on this topic, if your money is currently spread across 10 or 15 different accounts at multiple institutions, now is the time to consolidate. Combine your retirement accounts into one place. Bring everything under one or two institutions. The simpler your financial picture, the easier and more enjoyable your retirement becomes. Number 4, expensive toys that have quietly become expensive burdens. The boat, the recreational vehicle, the all-terrain vehicle, the motorcycle, the timeshare, the jet ski that has been sitting completely untouched in your garage for the past few years. These things lose value steadily over time, and they come with ongoing costs that are easy to ignore until you actually add them all up. Here's a real example. A man named John spent 20 years restoring classic cars. He built a collection of 5 beautiful vehicles, each one restored to perfection with his own hands. Those cars represented years of weekend work, late nights in the garage, and craftsmanship he was deeply proud of. But as John got closer to retirement, those 5 cars were costing him about $8,000 per year in storage fees, insurance, maintenance, and registration. He was spending over $12,000 annually on cars he actually drove maybe 6 times per year. His wife sat down with him and walked through the math calmly. At that level of use, each single drive was costing roughly $2,000. John's first reaction was immediate. Absolutely not. These are not just cars. They are my life's work. That reaction made complete sense. These were not just vehicles to John. They were proof of 2 decades of skill and dedication. But over the following years, something shifted quietly. He found himself visiting the storage unit less and less. The cars sat there, beautiful but untouched, while $12,000 per year kept steadily draining from their retirement budget. A year later, John arrived at a simple but powerful realization. He was keeping those cars for who he used to be, not for who he was becoming. So he kept his absolute favorite, the very first one he ever restored, the one with the most personal meaning. The other 4 he sold to collectors who would actually drive them and appreciate them fully. The result, he cut his annual expenses by $9,000, freed up $180,000 in capital, and eliminated the stress of maintaining cars he almost never used. But he still had his favorite for weekend drives and car shows. He went from being a car collector to being a car enthusiast again. He kept the joy and released the burden. The lesson is not that you should sell everything you love. It is that holding on to everything sometimes prevents you from truly enjoying anything. Number 5, financially supporting your adult children at the expense of your own retirement. This is the hardest one on this list, and it will start some real conversations. But it needs to be said. If you are 60 years old right now, you likely have fewer than 1,000 weeks of healthy, active retirement time remaining. Your adult children have decades ahead of them to build wealth, recover from mistakes, and create their own financial security. One couple delayed their own retirement by 3 full years to help their daughter buy a home. They wanted to do it, and it came from a genuine place of love. But those were 3 years of their prime retirement years, years they will never get back. Their daughter could have qualified for a conventional mortgage, built equity gradually, and learned real financial responsibility along the way. Here is the reality. There are loans available for houses, cars, and education. There are no loans available for retirement. If you can genuinely afford to help your children without putting your own security at risk, by all means do it. But do not sacrifice your limited and irreplaceable time for problems your adult children are fully capable of solving on their own. Their timeline has room for setbacks and recovery. Yours does not. Number 6, the rental property or side business that has become a source of stress. Rental properties and side businesses can be excellent income streams. But in retirement, they have a quiet tendency to transform from assets into obligations you never signed up for. Ask yourself this honestly. Does this still bring me real satisfaction, or has it become a source of paperwork, phone calls, and stress I dread dealing with? One client sold his duplex and used the proceeds to completely simplify his life. No more tenants, no more late-night calls about plumbing emergencies. He traded that ongoing complexity for peace of mind and redirected the money to support his retirement on his own terms. There is also a concentration risk worth thinking about carefully. Many people have built their entire retirement plan around real estate continuing to perform well and units staying occupied. That works right up until it does not. Selling at the right time, especially when market conditions are strong, can turn concentrated risk into diversification and simplicity. This is not about walking away from something that is genuinely working for you. It is about honestly asking whether the time, energy, and risk are still worth carrying into this next chapter. Number 7, your old work identity. You cannot list this one for sale anywhere. But releasing it might be the single most important move on this entire list. One client was a surgeon for 30 years. When he retired, he was completely ready financially. But 6 months in, he sat down and said something that has stayed with me. He said he used to be Dr. Marcus. And now he was just Marcus. He was holding tightly to his professional title because it had become the entire foundation of how he saw himself. He started volunteering at a free clinic, not purely out of generosity, but because he needed to feel like Dr. Marcus again. The breakthrough came when he stopped trying to rebuild his old identity and started building a new one from scratch. He reconnected with woodworking. He began mentoring young doctors on his own schedule and his own terms. He became Grandpa Marcus in ways that were never possible when he was working 50 to 60 hours every single week. He found himself again, not in his old title, but in who he was freely choosing to become. Here is the truth. Your job title was never who you truly were. It was simply what you did. The most fulfilled retirees are not the ones trying to recreate their professional life after they stop working. They are the ones who use retirement to uncover parts of themselves that were buried under decades of responsibility. You cannot discover your new identity while holding tightly to your old one. That is exactly why this might be the most valuable thing you release. The 3-step framework. Should you sell it or should you keep it? Before making any permanent decision, run it through these 3 questions first. Question 1. Does this still serve my new life, or does it only serve my old one? Was this important because of who I was during my working years, or because of who I am becoming in retirement? Will I actually use this in the lifestyle I genuinely want to live right now? Am I keeping this out of pure habit, or does it truly add value going forward? Question 2. What is this really costing me in total? Look at the full picture. Direct costs like insurance, maintenance, storage, utilities, and property taxes. Opportunity cost, meaning what else could that money be doing for your retirement? Energy cost, meaning the time, stress, and mental bandwidth this thing demands from you. And space cost, meaning is this preventing you from living where or how you actually want to live? Question 3. If I let this go, what becomes possible? This shifts your thinking from scarcity to abundance. What experiences could those freed up funds create for you? What stress disappears the moment this is gone? What new opportunities open up when this weight is lifted? How would simplifying this one area of your life feel on a daily basis? The 90-day test. Before making any permanent decision, try living as if you have already made it for 60 to 90 days. Thinking about selling the recreational vehicle? Live as if you do not have it for 90 days and pay close attention to what you actually miss. Considering dropping to 1 car? Test it honestly for 2 months. Imagine the money from that sale is already sitting and growing inside your retirement account. Ask yourself, do you miss the thing, or do you feel relieved it is gone? Most people are genuinely surprised by how freeing it feels to release the things they were most convinced they could never give up. Retirement is not about deprivation. It is about optimization. It is about creating space for what matters most by releasing what no longer serves you. The happiest retirees are not the ones with the most possessions. They are the ones who learn the difference between what they own and what owns them. Every item you hold on to takes a piece of your attention, your money, and your energy. In retirement, those 3 things become your most precious resources. Do not spend them on things that made perfect sense in your old life, but have no real place in your new one. Now, I want to hear directly from you. Drop a comment right now and answer this. Which of these 7 things would be the hardest for you to let go of? And which one do you think would feel the most freeing the moment it was gone? Read through those comments too, because what other people share in there is genuinely valuable. If this video gave you even one new way to think about retirement, do one simple thing right now. Share this with a friend or family member who is getting close to retiring. Send it to them today. It could be the most useful thing you pass along to them all year, and it costs you nothing but a few seconds. And before you close out, go and watch our previous video right now. It is called The 3 Net Worth Milestones That Change Everything. It pairs perfectly with everything we just covered today and will show you exactly where you stand on your path to real financial freedom. You will want to see it. This is Uncle Investor. Keep making the smart moves, and I will see you in the next one.